Hello. Tonight, we begin with the most fascinating fairy tale. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Ass, the Fox, and the Lion. The ass and the fox, long accustomed to the dangers of the wild, once resolved to bind themselves together in a partnership for mutual safety. Each believed that the other possessed a quality he himself lacked. The ass trusted in his strength and endurance, while the fox prided himself on wit and quick invention. They reasoned that muscle and cunning, walking side by side, could pass unscathed through forest and field alike. With this confidence, they set out together at dawn, when the dew still clung to the leaves and the woods were quiet, but for distant calls. They had not gone far into the shadowed paths when fate placed before them the one creature against whom neither strength nor cleverness seemed sufficient. From behind a screen of tall grass emerged a lion, vast in body and terrible in presence, his mane catching the early light, and his eyes fixed steadily upon the pair. At once the ass trembled, his legs stiff with fear, for he knew that no speed of his own could save him if the lion chose to pursue. The fox, seeing the same peril, felt his heart race, but his mind raced faster still. Feigning calm, the fox slipped quietly away from his companion and advanced toward the lion with humble gestures. Bowing low, he spoke softly of service and advantage. He promised that if the lion would spare him, he would arrange matters so that the ass might be delivered into the lion's power without struggle or chase. The lion, amused and confident in his strength, gave his word that the fox would suffer no harm. Reassured, the fox returned to the ass with words of comfort and false friendship. He told him that the lion had agreed to peace, and that all danger could be avoided by following him to a place of safety. Trusting in their alliance, the ass followed, without suspicion. Soon they came upon a deep pit, hidden by leaves and brush. With practiced deceit, the fox guided the ass to the edge, and before the poor creature could understand the trap, he slipped and fell helplessly into the darkness below. The lion, seeing that the ass was safely secured and could not escape, turned at once upon the fox. Forgetful of his promise, or perhaps never intending to keep it, he seized the traitor in his jaws and crushed him without delay. Only afterward did he turn his attention to the ass, whom he attacked at leisure, for there was now no hurry and no rival left to fear. Pleasure bought with pains hurts. The flies and the honey pot. A number of flies, wandering restlessly through a house in search of food, were drawn by a sweet and heavy scent drifting from a corner of the room. There they found a jar of honey, overturned by accident, its golden contents spreading thickly across the surface of a table. The sight filled them with delight, for never had they seen such abundance freely offered. Without caution or restraint, they settled upon the honey and began to feast. Their tiny feet sank into its sticky surface as they drank deeply, caring only for the sweetness that flooded their senses. Each mouthful brought greater pleasure, and none thought of stopping while there was still more to taste. In their greed, they pushed farther and farther into the shining pool, but soon the very substance that delighted them became their undoing. Their feet were so coated and weighed down that they could no longer lift themselves into the air. Their wings fluttered uselessly, glued fast by the honey. One by one, they struggled, calling out in vain, until their strength failed and they were suffocated where they lay. As life left them, they cried out together in bitter understanding, "O foolish creatures that we are! For the sake of a little pleasure, we have destroyed ourselves. Pleasure bought with pains hurts." The lioness, a controversy, once arose among the beasts of the field, and it grew so loud and bitter that the whole countryside echoed with argument. The question that divided them was this: which animal deserved the greatest honor for bringing forth the largest number of young at a single birth? Each species praised itself and belittled the others, counting offspring as though numbers alone were proof of excellence. At last, in their clamor, they rushed together before the lioness, whose strength and dignity commanded silence wherever she appeared. They demanded that she settle the dispute, confident that her judgment would favor one side or another. With pointed voices, they asked her, "And you, Queen of Beasts, how many sons do you bring forth at a birth?" The lioness regarded them calmly, and then laughed, not with scorn, but with quiet certainty. "Why," she replied, "I bring forth only one." Murmurs of triumph rose among some of the animals, who took this as proof of her inferiority in numbers. But the lioness continued, her voice steady and proud. "Yet that one is a lion, complete, strong, and worthy in every part." At these words, the noise fell away, and the animals understood that true worth is not measured by how much is produced, but by the quality of what is brought into the world. The value is in the worth, not in the number. The Farmer and the Snake. One winter morning, when the fields lay silent beneath a hard white frost, and even the birds had withdrawn from the sky, a poor farmer went out to inspect his land. The earth was stiff as iron. The hedges glittered with ice, and the air cut the breath like a blade. As he walked along the edge of his field, his eye fell upon a snake lying motionless on the frozen ground. Its body was rigid, its coils stiffened by the cold, and no sign of life could be seen in it. The farmer stopped. He knew well the nature of snakes and the danger that lived within their fangs. Yet the sight of the helpless creature stirred his heart. "It is winter," he thought, "and death has already claimed enough this season." Believing the snake to be more a victim of the cold than an enemy, he bent down, lifted it gently, and placed it inside his coat, close to his chest, hoping the warmth of his own body might restore it to life. Slowly, as the minutes passed, the frozen flesh began to soften. The chill left the snake's limbs, its blood warmed, and the breath of life returned. Its eyes opened, its tongue flickered, and its ancient instincts awoke with it. Gratitude had no place in its nature. Knowing only what it had always known, the snake turned upon the one who had saved it and struck, sinking its venomous fangs deep into the farmer's flesh. The farmer cried out and staggered. The poison ran swiftly through his veins, and he felt his strength leaving him. As he fell upon the frozen ground, he looked upon the snake, which slid away into the grass, alive and free. With his last breath, he spoke bitterly, not to curse the cold nor the creature, but himself. "I am justly repaid," he said, "for showing mercy where no mercy could be returned." And so the farmer died, and the snake lived on, unchanged. From that day, the tale was told among men as a warning. The greatest kindness cannot bind the ungrateful, and pity, when given without wisdom, may become the hand that destroys us. The Man and the Lion. A man and a lion once journeyed together through a wide and shadowed forest. The path was long, the sun high above the treetops, and as they walked side by side, they began to speak of strength, courage, and mastery. Each praised his own kind and diminished the other, until their conversation turned into a contest of pride. The man spoke of weapons, of cleverness, and of victories won by human hands. He told of cities built, beasts tamed, and the world shaped to human will. The lion answered with tales of the hunt, of raw power, of claws and jaws that no creature could escape once seized. With every step, their boasting grew louder, and neither would yield an inch to the other. As they argued, they came upon a statue carved from solid stone beside the road. It showed a man standing triumphant, his arms locked around the throat of a lion, the great beast struggling beneath him. The man stopped and pointed at the sculpture with satisfaction. "Behold," he said, "the proof of our strength. Even the king of beasts must fall before us." The lion looked upon the statue in silence for a moment. Then he spoke calmly, without anger. "This image," he said, "was shaped by the hands of a man. It tells your story, not ours. If lions knew how to carve stone and raise monuments, you would see a different sight. You would see the man lying beneath the lion's paw, not the lion beneath the man's arm." The man had no answer to this, and they continued on their way, each thoughtful in his own manner. Thus it was understood that strength is often praised by the one who holds the chisel, and every story seems true until another voice is given the power to tell it. The pomegranate, the apple tree, and the bramble in a fertile orchard where the sun fell gently and the soil was rich. A pomegranate bush and an apple tree grew side by side. Each bore fruit in its season, and each delighted in its own appearance. One day, when their branches were heavy and their leaves at their finest, they began to quarrel over which of them was the more beautiful. The pomegranate praised the deep red of its blossoms and the jewel-like seeds hidden within its fruit. The apple tree answered with pride in its smooth green leaves and the fair round apples that hung like ornaments from its boughs. Their words grew sharper, their rivalry louder, and neither would admit any fault or concede any grace to the other. As their dispute reached its height, a bramble growing in the nearby hedge lifted its thorny head and spoke. "My dear friends," it said in a loud and self-satisfied tone, "at least in my presence, cease from such foolish arguments. Compared to me, your beauty is nothing." The pomegranate and the apple tree fell silent, astonished that a plant so rough and barren should speak with such pride. And so it was seen that vanity often speaks loudest from the least deserving lips, and that even those with nothing to show may claim the highest place. The Farmer and the Stork. In the first days of spring, when the soil was still dark with winter's memory, and the fields waited patiently for life, a farmer went out before dawn to tend his newly plowed land. With careful hands, he scattered seed across the furrows, each grain a promise of bread yet to come. Knowing well the habits of the countryside, he also laid fine nets across the fields, for he had learned that birds often descend in hungry flocks to steal what has been sown with such effort and hope. Not long after the sun rose, a noisy company of cranes swept down upon the land. They strutted and pecked without shame, snapping up seed as if the labor of others were theirs to enjoy. As they fed, their feet became tangled, and the nets rose around them. Among the flapping wings and startled cries was another bird, taller and paler, whose presence seemed almost accidental. This was a stork, traveling with the flock for ease of the journey, though his nature was not like theirs. In his struggle to free himself, his leg was cruelly twisted and broken by the cord. When the farmer arrived and saw what he had caught, the stork lifted his long beak and spoke with earnest sorrow. He begged for mercy, his voice trembling with pain. He said that his injury alone should awaken pity in any honest heart. He pleaded that he was no thief, no crane by habit or desire, but a stork of upright character, known for patience and devotion. He told how he cared for his aged parents, how he labored faithfully to provide for them, and how his feathers, white and black, bore no likeness to the gray of the cranes beside him. The farmer listened, unmoved by the eloquence of suffering. Then he laughed, not in cruelty, but in firm resolve, and answered that fine words could not change the truth of what his eyes had seen. The stork, whatever his virtues, had been taken in the same net and at the same hour as the robbers. He had chosen their company and must share their fate. Justice, the farmer said, must judge by deeds and alliances, not by protestations made too late. And so the stork learned, in bitter pain, that innocence claimed after the fact cannot always undo a careless choice of companions. Birds of a feather flock together. The mountain in labor, there once stood a great mountain, ancient and vast, rising above the plains like a sleeping giant. One day, the earth beneath it began to tremble. Deep rumbles echoed from its core, and groans rolled across the valleys like thunder trapped underground. The ground shook so violently that stones slid down its sides, and clouds of dust rose into the air. Word spread quickly among the people. From villages near and far they came, whispering in fear and wonder. Some expected fire and ruin, others the birth of a new land or a monster of terrible size. The wise debated, the foolish panicked, and all waited with breath held tight. The mountain groaned louder still, as though straining under a burden too great to bear. At last, with a final shudder, something emerged. Out from a small crack at the base crept a mouse, tiny, gray, and utterly ordinary. It paused, twitched its nose, and scurried away without ceremony. Otsia. The crowd stood in silence, shamefaced and confused, and slowly dispersed. Each person reminded that noise and display do not always measure importance. Don't make much ado about nothing. The bear and the fox, in a dense forest, where beasts often praised themselves more loudly than they practiced virtue, there lived a bear of enormous size and swelling pride. He often proclaimed his love for humanity, declaring that among all animals, he alone showed true respect for man. As proof, he boasted that he would never touch a human body, not even after death, believing this restraint to be the highest mark of moral greatness. The bear spoke of this often, especially when others were near to hear him. He enjoyed the sound of his own virtue and the nods of those too timid to challenge him. One day, a fox passed by and paused to listen. The fox was smaller, sharper of mind, and far less impressed by fine speeches. With a sly smile, the fox replied that such tenderness would indeed be admirable, if only it were complete. He said that he wished the bear would extend the same mercy to the living as he claimed to show the dead. "For what comfort is it," the fox asked, "to spare corpses while harming those who still breathe?" The bear had no answer, and the forest seemed quieter for a moment, as truth settled where pride had been. Fine words mean little when actions speak otherwise. The Tortoise and the Eagle. A tortoise lay stretched upon a warm rock beside the sea, her heavy shell glowing faintly in the sun. As the waves whispered against the shore and the seabirds wheeled freely above her, she sighed with deep discontent. To those birds she poured out her complaint, lamenting the narrow limits of her life. She spoke bitterly of her short steps, her slow pace, and the cruel injustice, as she believed it, that chained her forever to the dust, while others sailed joyfully among the clouds. An eagle, strong of wing and sharp of eye, hovered nearby and overheard her words. He descended slowly, his great wings stirring the air, and demanded what reward she would offer if he granted her desire, and carried her aloft into the sky. The tortoise, blinded by longing, promised him all the riches of the Red Sea, treasures she imagined beyond counting. Though she had never possessed them, the eagle agreed. Seizing her firmly in his talons, he rose into the air. Higher and higher he flew, until the land shrank beneath them and the clouds drew near. The tortoise, dizzy and terrified, had no time to repent her wish. Suddenly, the eagle released his hold. She fell headlong upon a high mountain, and her shell was shattered upon the rocks. In her final breath, she cried out that she had earned her fate, for she had sought wings and clouds when she could scarcely move upon the earth. If men were granted all they desired, their wishes would often become the instruments of their ruin. The Fox and the Goat. A fox, wandering in search of food, came upon a deep well hidden among stones and weeds. By mischance, he slipped and fell into it. And though he leaped and strained with all his cunning, he found no way to escape. After a time, a goat approached the same well, burning with thirst beneath the heat of the day. Peering down, he saw the fox below and asked whether the water was worth the trouble of descending. The fox, hiding his distress beneath a cheerful manner, praised the water with extravagant words. He spoke of its coolness, its sweetness, and its power to refresh the spirit, urging the goat to join him without delay. The goat, thinking only of his thirst and not of danger, leapt into the well at once and drank eagerly. When his thirst was quenched, the fox revealed their predicament and proposed a plan. If the goat would place his forefeet against the wall and bend his head, the fox would climb upon his back, reach the opening, and then assist him afterward. Trusting the fox's words, the goat agreed. The fox sprang lightly upward, steadied himself upon the goat's horns, and escaped. Without a backward glance, he ran off. When the goat reproached him for his broken promise, the fox replied that a wise creature would never leap into danger without first considering the way out. Look before you leap. The Raven and the Swan. A raven once observed a swan gliding across a lake, his feathers shining white as snow beneath the sun. Envy stirred in the raven's heart, and he longed to possess such beauty for himself. He imagined that the swan's color came from the waters in which he swam, and believed that by the same habit he might achieve the same splendor. Leaving the places where he once found food, the raven took up life among lakes and pools. He washed his feathers again and again, plunging into the water with tireless effort. Yet no matter how often he cleansed himself, his plumage remained dark. Meanwhile, having abandoned his former way of living, he found no food and grew weak. At last, wasted by hunger and disappointment, he perished. A change of habit cannot alter nature. The thirsty pigeon, a pigeon worn thin by the heat of the day and the long flight beneath an unpitying sun, felt her throat burn as if lined with dust. Each breath scraped her chest. Each beat of her wings grew heavier than the last. She circled the marketplace below, searching rooftops, gutters, and shaded corners for a single drop of water, but found nothing except dry stone and human noise. At last, her sharp eyes caught sight of a shining goblet painted upon a wooden signboard hanging above a shop. The cup gleamed with such lifelike clarity that it seemed freshly filled, the surface smooth and cool, promising relief and life. To the pigeon, half blinded by thirst and desperation, there was no doubt. Water was there, waiting. With a cry of hope, she folded her wings and flew straight toward it. The air whistled around her feathers as she rushed forward, her whole being fixed on that imagined drink. But the goblet was nothing more than color and illusion. In the next instant, her body struck hard wood instead of cool water. The blow stunned her. Pain exploded through her wings and breast. She fell helplessly to the ground, feathers scattered, breath broken, unable to rise, trembling and injured. She lay exposed upon the stones. People gathered, curious and indifferent. One among them reached down and took her, while she could only flutter weakly, her strength spent chasing a false promise. Thus it was learned that eagerness, when it runs ahead of judgment, leads not to fulfillment, but to ruin. For zeal without discretion turns hope itself into a snare. The dog in the manger, in a quiet stable at the edge of a field, where the smell of hay mixed with earth and warm breath, there lay a dog curled deep within a manger. The hay beneath him was golden and dry, gathered with care for the oxen whose labor fed the farm. The dog, having no taste for such food, rested there only for comfort and possession. When the oxen returned from their toil, necks bowed and muscles aching, they approached the manger eagerly, longing for the hay prepared for them. But the dog rose at once, baring his teeth. He growled ostos low and fierce, snapping at their noses whenever they drew near. Though he could not eat the hay, he guarded it as though it were treasure. The oxen stepped back, astonished and hungry. One of them spoke with quiet bitterness to the others. "See how selfish this creature is. He takes no nourishment from what he defends, yet he denies it to those whose need is real." So they stood, restrained by the dog's useless fury, and the hay lay untouched while strength drained from those who deserved it. In this way, it was shown that there are those who, though unable to use a thing themselves, would rather let it rot than allow others to benefit. And such conduct serves no purpose but spite. The Oxen and the Axle-Trees, along a narrow country road, rutted by time and weather, a heavy wagon crept forward under the weight of its load. The wheels turned slowly, the frame trembling with each uneven stone. A team of oxen, broad-backed and patient, leaned into their yokes, pulling with steady strength, step after step. As the wagon moved, the axle-trees began to groan and creak loudly, filling the air with complaints. They shrieked at every jolt, protesting as though the burden were theirs alone. The noise echoed down the lane, drawing attention to their suffering. At last the oxen stopped and turned their great heads toward the wheels. One of them spoke, not in anger, but in calm truth. "Why do you cry out so loudly? We bear the weight, strain our muscles, and feel the road through our bones. Yet we move in silence. You, who feel only a fraction of the burden, make the greatest noise." The wagon resumed its journey, the oxen once more pulling without complaint, while the axle-trees continued their empty clamor. And so it was understood that those who endure the heaviest labor often do so quietly, while those who suffer least are the quickest to cry out. The farmer and the cranes, in a wide valley where the soil lay dark and newly turned. A band of cranes discovered fields that had just been sown with tender wheat. The grains were fresh, the earth soft, and the promise of easy food drew them down day after day. They walked among the furrows with long, careful steps, plucking at the seeds before they could ever take root, and the land echoed with their low calls and the beating of their wings. The farmer soon noticed the damage. Each morning, he found the straight lines of his plow disturbed and the seed scattered or gone. Angered, but unwilling to shed blood at first, he took up his sling and ran at the birds, swinging it high above his head. The sight of the whirling strap and the loud shouts of the man filled the cranes with fear. They lifted themselves into the air in a flurry of wings and cries, and for a time they kept their distance. Yet days passed, and the cranes watched more closely. They saw that no stones ever followed the farmer's gestures, that the sling cut nothing but the air. Gradually, their fear faded. When he came running again, they merely stepped aside, craning their necks and calling mockingly, for they had learned that the threat was empty. The farmer shouted until his voice grew hoarse, but the birds would not leave. At last, the farmer understood that noise alone would not protect his labor. He placed stones in his sling and returned once more to the field. This time, when he swung his arm, the air sang with a sharper sound, and stones flew true. Several cranes fell, their white feathers stained against the soil. The rest took flight in sudden terror, rising high and fleeing far beyond the fields. As they vanished, they cried to one another that it was time to seek another land. For this man no longer frightened them with shadows, but had shown them the weight of his power. If words suffice not, blows must follow. The sick lion, in a rocky country where caves opened like dark mouths in the hills, there lived a lion whose strength had once been feared by all. In his youth, he had hunted openly, and no beast could outrun or resist him. But years passed. His limbs stiffened, his teeth dulled, and hunger pressed upon him. Unable now to take his prey by force, he turned his mind to cunning. He crept back to his den and lay there upon the stone, breathing heavily and groaning as though in great pain. He made certain that the tale of his illness spread through the forests and plains. Soon the animals spoke of nothing else. The mighty lion, brought low by age and sickness. Out of pity and curiosity, they came to inquire after him. One by one, they entered the cave, offering words of comfort. But once inside, they never returned. The lion's strength, though diminished, was still enough to destroy those who came too near, and his hunger was satisfied by their trust. Many days passed, and the number of beasts grew fewer, until at last the fox, keen of eye and wary by nature, approached the den. The fox did not step inside. He halted at the entrance and looked closely at the ground. There he saw many footprints leading inward, pressed deep into the dust and stone. Yet for all those tracks, he saw none leading back out again. Standing at a safe distance, he called to the lion and asked how he fared. "I am neither well nor dying," answered the lion, "but your presence would comfort me. Why do you linger outside? Come in and speak with me more closely." The fox bowed politely, but did not move. He replied that he wished the lion health, yet preferred to remain where he stood. "For," he said, "the ground itself had given him counsel. Many feet went in, but none ever returned. He is wise who is warned by the misfortunes of others." The bear and the two travelers. Two men set out together on a long journey, sharing the same road and promising each other companionship along the way. The path led through woods and open country, and for a time their conversation lightened the miles. But as they entered a lonely stretch of forest, a great bear suddenly emerged before them, blocking the road with its massive form. At the sight of danger, their courage did not prove equal. One man, thinking only of himself, ran at once to a tree and climbed into its branches, hiding among the leaves and saying nothing to his companion. The other found himself alone on the ground, face to face with the beast, with no place to flee. Seeing escape was impossible. He remembered a tale he had once heard, that a bear will not touch a body that appears lifeless. Trusting this slender hope, he threw himself flat upon the earth, held his breath, and lay as still as stone. The bear came close, sniffed him from head to foot, and pressed its heavy snout against him. The man did not move, not even when fear shook him within. At last, the bear turned away and lumbered back into the forest, leaving him unharmed. Only when the danger had fully passed did the man rise. Then the traveler, who had hidden in the tree, came down. laughing nervously, and asked what secret the bear had whispered into his friend's ear. "It gave me advice worth remembering," said the man who had lain on the ground. "It told me never to travel with a companion who abandons me when danger appears. Misfortune tests the sincerity of friends." The fox who had lost his tail. A fox once wandered too close to a hunter's snare, tempted by the scent of food and the promise of easy fortune. In a moment of pain and terror, he struggled, twisted, and fought with all the cleverness for which his kind is known. At last, he tore himself free, but the victory was bitter. His splendid tail, once his pride and balance, was left behind in the trap. Bleeding and shaken, he fled into the woods, alive, but altered forever. When the fox returned among his fellows, his misery deepened. Wherever he went, eyes followed him. Whispers rippled through the brush. Some foxes laughed openly. Others smirked behind their paws. The tail was no small thing among foxes. It was a mark of beauty, agility, and dignity. Without it, he felt naked, incomplete, and mocked by every glance. His days grew heavy, his nights restless, and his once easy confidence turned into a constant ache of shame. At first, he hid himself, creeping through thickets and avoiding gatherings, but solitude brought no comfort. Alone with his thoughts, he grew bitter. Why should he alone suffer ridicule for a misfortune not wholly his fault? Why should the accident of a trap decide his worth? Slowly, a plan formed in his cunning mind. If he could not regain his tail, he would change what a tail meant. The fox began to speak, carefully at first, dropping casual remarks as if by chance. He complained of how heavy tails were, how often they snagged on thorns or betrayed a fox's hiding place. He hinted that elegance did not truly depend on such a cumbersome appendage. These whispers stirred curiosity, but also suspicion. Soon, he called a great assembly of foxes in a clearing at dawn. Standing before them, with practiced confidence, he spoke eloquently. He declared that the age of tales was over, that true beauty lay in sleekness and freedom. Without tails, he said, foxes would move faster, hide better, and live unburdened by useless weight. He painted a future where tailless foxes were admired for their clever minds, rather than for a tuft of fur dragging behind them. Some foxes murmured in interest. Others shifted uneasily. The speech was clever, the reasoning smooth, and the words carried the polish of conviction. For a moment, it seemed the crowd might be swayed, but at last, one older fox stepped forward, his tail full and shining in the morning light. He looked steadily at the speaker and said, calmly but firmly, If you had not yourself lost your tail, my friend, you would not urge us so eagerly to give up ours." A hush fell over the clearing. The truth hung in the air, heavier than any tale. The fox who had lost his tail had no answer. His fine words collapsed, and the assembly quietly dispersed, each fox returning to the woods with tail held a little higher, and with a clear lesson in mind. The cat and the cock, a cat sleek and silent, once crept through a farmyard at dawn, her paws barely stirring the dust. Her sharp eyes soon fixed upon a proud cock, standing upon a low fence, feathers bright and chest lifted high. With a swift leap, the cat seized him, pinning him beneath her claws before he could even sound an alarm. As she held him fast, the cat did not eat at once. She was cunning, and she liked to dress her hunger in reason. "Surely," she thought, "I must have a proper excuse, for even appetite should wear the mask of justice." So she began to accuse the trembling cock. "You are a nuisance to men," she said coldly. "Night after night you crow without mercy, disturbing honest sleep and robbing people of their rest. For this crime alone, you deserve punishment." The cock, though frightened, gathered his courage. "I crow not for harm," he replied, "but for the good of men. My voice wakes them, so they may rise in time for their labors. Without me, they would oversleep, neglect their work, and fall into disorder. I am their servant, not their torment." The cat flicked her tail and narrowed her eyes. "Fine words," she said, "but I have another charge. You are guilty of impiety. I hear that you summon people to prayer at dawn, disturbing the quiet of the holy hours." The cock answered quickly, "If I call them to prayer, is that not a virtue? I remind them of their duties to heaven as well as to earth. Surely that is no crime." The cat listened, nodding slowly, as if weighing every word. Then she smiled, a thin, dangerous smile. "You are full of clever defenses and polished excuses," she said. "You could argue until sunset, and still my hunger would not be satisfied." With that, she ended the debate. Reason gave way to appetite, and the cock's eloquence could not save him. The cat made her meal and slipped away, leaving the quiet yard behind her. Thus it was shown that fine arguments are useless when spoken to those who seek not truth, but only an excuse for what they already intend to do.